Hey,
Got my
everybody, and
head in
welcome
the
back to
stars.
Keeping It Real with Tiff and Carl. I'm Carl Raven.
And I am Tiffany Salcido.
And Tiff, it has been quite the week, as a lot of people have been feeling this, as we talked about, how's your time been? With family, and we haven't really talked since Easter, right? How's your time been going?
It's been all right. My son came to visit. He's here right now. My baby, the baby. He's not here for me though. He's here because he's hanging out with some friends, but he stays at our house. But I get to spend some time with him, which has been pretty cool. Um, but I've been busy. I was in the Eastern Sierras last week for almost the whole week, doing some training, and then I came back over the weekend and I been up past my bedtime every day this week, just from traveling, going back and forth, and other stuff that I signed up for. And today I was fatigued. I slept until 9 a.m. I don't do that, but I did it today because I needed it. I absolutely needed it. And I'd do it again. Let's just say that. But um, there was a first this week. One of my classes brought me a bouquet of flowers. I thought that was like the sweetest thing in the whole wide world. I felt um, so honored to walk into this beautiful bouquet of flowers. And so I thought that was really, really sweet. So thank you to Larry. Thank you. I love you back. I love you back. Very,
Oh,
very nice. How about you? How about you? What have you been up to?
oh man, I've been busy a bit. I was on the road, this week. Um, from Sunday to Wednesday, and you know, and I mean, I was in Monterey County on Monday, and then Fresno Tuesday, and Stockton Wednesday, and so it kind of was a triangle, of travel, a triangle of travel, yes, and so every
Yeah,
day was, teach a full 8 hours and then drive 3 hours, right? So it was, it can take its toll, right? So definitely getting that rest and sleep is important. I didn't get a bouquet of flowers, but I did in Fresno County. I had some of the staff. They actually, asked me to lunch and then actually took me to lunch, even though I protested. But it was the end of their supervisor series, so they just wanted to show appreciation and say thank you. And so, that type of stuff always feels good when you have a group of people that appreciate you. So
yeah,
I definitely
for sure.
I feel that as well. So I, just keeps reminding me why I love what we do, and how much I look forward to, as much as, like, you said, the travel starts wearing you out, but much of the travel's the hardest part of the job. I mean, everything else, when I'm in the training room, it's just, that I'm in my place. So, I definitely feel that and appreciate that. So yeah.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I have this month, the rest of this month is very, very, very heavy on travel. I'll be leaving Sunday. I'll be gone all week. I come back. I'm home for maybe a day or two, and then I'm gone, and I'll be gone for 11 days, 11 days straight on the road for classes. They're like, I'm Friday at one place and Saturday, or Friday in one place and Monday I'm another place. I don't even have time to like come home and regroup because it's like by the time I got home it'd be to leave again. So I'll be I'll be all the way up from Southern California to Northern, like literally Crescent City and back, over 11 days with all kinds of stops in between. And then um, I I just already feel fatigued and I haven't even started that trip yet. But it's going to be a long, long trip. And like sometimes it's awesome where you're in the same place for a few days, which is like rare. It's a unicorn in the mist when you can be in one place for a short period of time. Most of it's like I'm here one day, the next day I'm here, and then the next day I'm here, and that's kind of how this trip is, with the exception of when I get to Crescent City, I'll be there for a few days. So that'll
Yeah.
be at the last leg of the trip, and I will survive. But sometimes I look at my calendar and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
What the hell was I thinking? Who did this? Who did this to me? And then I'm like, I did this to me.
Yeah.
I did this to me.
It's funny. Yeah. Tuesday night, I was just booking the travel my travel for the rest of the fiscal year for the next 2 months. And I was looking, I've yeah, like you mentioned, 13 trips, right? And it's like they're just doing that. The ad, the next couple weeks I'm going to Monterey County next week, but then,
Hmm.
the rest of the time I'll be working from home or in the office or, close in the area. But then, yeah, I'll be in San Francisco and then Ventura and then, just bouncing back and forth. I booked a couple
Yeah.
flights and rental cars and hotels. And I was like, wow, I looked at my email and it was like 20 different notices. Hey, you reserved this, you reserved that. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah. So it's gonna pick up for me like that. And then after a couple weeks, and so yeah, and life is busy. My daughter's gonna graduate this month. We're
Aw,
yeah, we're going up to Bottle Rock this month, and so it's the festival there. We're gonna go see Green Day, which is her that's
fun.
kind of our band together. So but it's definitely gonna pick up. But this is the time of year where it picks up, and that's definitely an important thing to talk about. That's what we're gonna talk about today, is the idea of you know being slammed and being overwhelmed and what to do in those situations, and how to stop from crashing out, right?
Right.
In those situations. But before we get into that, I have in my hot little hands a question for you, Tiff.
I'm ready for it.
All right. So my question is, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Easy question. Registered nurse. I wanted to be a registered nurse my whole life. Always, always, always. Never changed until I went to my first semester of college and
Yeah.
found out that nurses have to give shots and see blood. And I said, nope, not for me. And that took me down a spiral of, I don't know what I want to be anymore. It took me till probably like 35 to figure out my life after that. But my grandma was a registered nurse, and I thought my grandma could walk on water, and I just wanted to be just like her. And I didn't think about the details of what nursing really was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to be a registered nurse.
Cool. And
What
then,
about you? What did you want to be?
well, when I was little, I wanted to be a firefighter or a professional baseball player, and and never got into the firefighting, but I played baseball as far as I could, and played on some semi-pro teams and had some tryouts and things. Never got drafted, never played minor league baseball or anything, and played a little in college, but never really, got super far with that. But
Mhm.
um, but that also leads me to another question that I had, just thinking from that
Okay.
question. When did you, at what point in your life did you um feel like you wanted to be a teacher, right? Or a trainer, an instructor, where you wanted to teach other folks and work with other folks.
So I it had it had to have been like I don't know if there's like one defining moment, but I think what it was is that when I started when I started with the county, I was and I would say I was just an eligibility worker. I was an eligibility worker. There's no just about it. I was an eligibility worker. And I came in at a weird time. Like we had new systems, we didn't have really adequate training. We kind of like had to teach ourselves, which I'm not mad about. I love to figure things out. I love a good challenge. Um, but I got really good and really well versed in the program. I tend to be an overachiever and I like to know everything. I don't like to not know stuff. And so if there's information available, I want to consume as much as I can. And so I got really good at the programs and became somewhat of a, I guess, subject matter expert, like a go-to person because I knew where to find stuff. I could look up rules and regs. I was really good at that. Um, but then I was part of a training committee, and I did that training committee because I wanted to do something different. I had already kind of like the job wasn't as challenging for me anymore. It was kind of routine, and I'm routine is like the bane of my existence. Um, so I was looking for like new opportunities to do different stuff. And so I got into the training committee, and I wasn't good at it in the beginning, let me tell you. I was the worst. I just would write. I'm good at writing. That's like one of my specialties is I'm really good at writing stuff. Um, but then I would just stand up in front of the class and read it. Like I didn't want to miss any of the details that I had written, and that wasn't very effective. And then I started putting on PowerPoint and just reading it from there, and that also was not effective. But it wasn't until like I got put in staff development. I can't say I got put in staff development. I applied for and I interviewed for and I did a presentation for, but I was accepted into staff development. And I did my first induction class. That is when I found that was what I was meant to do. Like once I started doing it, that's when I realized this is my jam. And so, like Mandy Brum was in my very first induction class. That's how I met Mandy. And
Wow. Yeah.
Kristen, my bestie, was in my second
Yeah.
induction class, and that's how I met Kristen. So a lot of like the people that I love the most, I had been their trainer at some point or another. So, with
Those are
that
both
being said,
colleagues that we work with and who are now trainers and in or
they're big
teach
people.
classes themselves. Yeah. Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
very important
Yeah.
people, very
Yeah.
important people. So I always like to say I had a little investment in their awesomeness, right?
Right.
But with it just it was what I it came easy to me once I got like found my flow. I think that's like the big thing with being a trainer or a teacher or anything where you're like sharing information with people. You have to find like your style and the way that you can connect with people, because it's not just about like knowing information. It's how do you connect information with people in the way that they need to be connected with. And so that somehow worked for me, and I really got a lot of value out of it. And like to be the expert in anything, you teach it. So the more that you have to be in front of people and be accountable for their learning, the more that you are invested in really like becoming knowledgeable. And that really pushed me to again try to be the best. So um, I went away for a while. I left staff development and I went into supervision for a period of time, and that was not where I was happy. And I tried a couple of other things, and it was not where I was happy. And I gravitated right back towards training. And so now that I do this full time, I can't ever imagine me doing anything else because I really do love it. I really do love it. I love connecting with the classes. I love like I don't love the administrative part of training. Can I just be honest? I hate the travel arrangements. I hate whatever, but I love developing. I love like when someone says this is what we want to learn. I love doing research. I love developing. I love putting things together. I love watching people grow in their skill sets. It's intoxicating, to be perfectly honest with you, and to know like when you get feedback from people that come back and are like, you know what, I'm better because of what you taught me. It's like a really, I don't know, it's a great feeling.
Yeah.
I don't that's how I got into it. That's where I'm at. And it's funny because I'm sure you have these conversations with people too, where they'll come up and like, do you remember 6 years ago and you said this and I took that to heart and it changed my life? And I'm like, I said that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot, I should write that down.
Well, yeah, right. I was just talking out of my ass. I didn't do right.
Yeah, yeah, like, oh man, I should bottle that up. That's a good one. Man, I was really smart when I said that thing that I said that I forgot that I said, but I'm glad it changed your life. I think that's where I'm at. And I'm a natural helper. I think going from nursing to training and human services, like I think I was meant to be a helper. That like in whatever format it is, I really take that seriously. I really do love like having a positive impact on people. And that does require, I'm sure you're fully aware, like a level of self-care, because if I'm not at my best, how do I if I'm not walking the walk, how do I talk the talk? And so it does require like a certain level of accountability to really be able to live up to these ideals that you're teaching to other people. You can't just like profess those values, you really have to live up to them. So it keeps me honest, for lack of a better word, makes me be a better person.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, I kind of took the kind of the same journey in terms of professional training. I went and I did when I was with the county, I did case management, and then I got into the workshop unit, and then I became a supervisor, and then went back to the workshop unit, right? And so just thinking like that, I feel you when it was coming to that. It just wasn't quite giving me the same the same feeling or lift as I had.
Mhm.
But I just going back, I guess I mentioned I wanted to be a fireman or a baseball player.
Mhm.
I started coaching when I was 15, 16. And I was coaching younger kids and working with them and and doing people were responding to me. I don't know if I was doing a great job, but people were responding to me in a positive way, and I really did enjoy that. And I did it for 10 years or so, over 10 years. Um and I was working at and I was going to be a teacher. I thought I was going to be a high school history teacher when I got out of when I graduated college. That's what I wanted to do. I enrolled or I applied for the teaching credential program at San Francisco State University, and I was ready to go. And then um, I got a job working at Edwards Air Force Base down south, kind of put a crimp in my style. But at the same time, I was working with the youth there. So, I was, really doing some leadership stuff with teens and really feeling like that was making a difference and seeing the responses that I got from folks. And so, when it came, I wanted to get my master's. I wanted to work on that, and there was a program for instructional design, and it matched, my overall ideas of education, and so that really helped me, especially when I went to work for the county. I was still working on my master's, and I was almost done, and then the workshop unit expanded their program from just a week-long program to a 3-week program, and so I raised my hand and wanted to be part of it, and bugged them and pestered them, and I got into it, and I really caught the bug. Just working with adults. That's really the area that I'm passionate about. And as
Mhm.
much as I love working with kids, but I like really having the concept of critical thinking and applying those topics that we're talking about. Practical application. I need that, right? So how is what we're going to talk about affecting what you're going to do after?
Mhm.
What you're going to do? What you're going to do, right? So that's something that has really been my guiding principle. How the impact that I have on people. So I try to come prepared, try to come ready for each class, and try to recognize that even if this is the same class I've taught for 30 days in a row, it's
Yeah.
a 30th different audience, and so not everyone hears things the same way. That and people have different questions every time I teach the same class. There's always a different experience, right? And so there's some topics I spend a little more time on, some topics I spend less time on, just depending on the need of the class. So it's it's like you said, it's fun, it's engaging. I'm passionate about it, so it keeps me energized. And just like we've said, if travel's the worst part of it, the job, the administrative stuff, yeah, the travel, yeah. But I mean, once I'm in the training room, it sounds like once you're in the training room, we're in our place, we're in our space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I hear you.
I love it. I do love it. And I think I think it's really special when people find the thing that they really care about. Um, in all fields, right? Like when you find that thing that I don't want to be all cliche here, like, oh, you find what you love and you never work a day in your life. Like it's still
I don't know.
work. I
Yeah,
still it's still work. And I still complain about work just like
yeah,
everybody else complains about work. Like it's not sunshine and roses. But I do say that um I'm skilled in it and I'm confident in my skills in it. It's something that I can always be creative in and grow in. It's not routine. I mean, it's all of the things that I need. And as long as people keep getting value out of it, then I'm going to keep doing it. And as soon as it's not a value to people anymore, then maybe I'll look at something else. And by something else, I mean retire and maybe see what it's like,
Yeah,
you know, not working. But I'll probably
yeah,
never ever get there, to be honest with you. I think I'll work till the
no,
day I die. I'll probably die at work if I had to guess. Don't let me sit there for 4 days, please. But I'll
yeah.
probably die working.
There's this thing I say that I probably should stop saying, but I tell people, I'm either gonna, you know, die in bed asleep, or I'm gonna die in a training room, and I hope you're not there when they wheel me out. But you know, but it's just as much as I'll always have that bug. It's
Yeah.
something that's, as long as it's worth it to people, like you said, as long as it adds value to people's lives and what we're doing,
Hmm.
then it adds values to mine, right? So that's
Yeah.
definitely an important piece.
All right. I have my book of questions here, 1 through 3,000. Go ahead. Give me a number.
1858.
1858 is, are you attracted to intelligence? Does it matter to you? It's a good question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I really dig, and what I look for intelligence. It's not necessarily just, how much you know or can recite. It's not about being book smart, right? It's just, I know some of the people I've cared about most in life have, not been the most educated, but I can talk to them about anything, and we can have an actual conversation about it. And
Mhm.
they pick up on concepts, just as much as, any other PhD or any other, high level scholar that I know, right? And so I do look for, you know, to stimulating conversation is definitely something that is great, right? And yeah, so when I see that in people, it attracts me to them, and not necessarily, always like, physical attraction. I mean, just, in terms of like, people. I like to say I keep people that that I that stimulate me close to me, right? So I
Mhm.
like to pick their brain and connect with them, right? And send them different things about different topics and whatnot, and just to be able to have that conversation, right? And so, my dad and I can go on for hours talking about topics because, we pretty much share the same brain, right? And it's real cool to
Mhm.
hear insights from him, and also be at that point in my life where I'm more of a peer now, so I can share with him and give him insights and and he can rely on me as much as I relied on him, growing up. So I really do. Yeah. And intelligence is important, but it's not always about, you know, um, how much what type of grades you got, or how, how
Right.
educated you are. It's really about, you know, can you process what we're talking about in a critical way and actually really see things that, where you're not just stuck in one mode and just living off your emotions, right? So yeah,
Right.
I
I
can tell
think
you
it's
what doesn't.
attractive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what
No,
isn't
finish up,
attractive
please.
is
Uh-huh.
what isn't attractive is people who, are stuck in their ways, and they know what they know, and you can't tell me any different. And
Right.
and that type of stuff, especially in the climate we're in these days, it just, lack of intelligence, lack of critical thinking, just really turns me off, and it's hard for me to engage in conversation, even though I know I have to. And it's actually something that I talk about a lot in my classes. Sometimes, how do you connect with people who aren't interested in connecting with you, right? So, but it's definitely not one of the more attractive traits, I'll tell you that.
I don't waste my time. My mom used to always say you can't have a battle of wits with an unknown person. So uh sometimes it's like, yeah, you're right. And then we move on with our lives.
Hmm.
um so I grew up pretty smart for my age. Hold on. Excuse me. Allergy season, gotta love it. I was always really smart. Even in elementary school, I second grade, I'd be in third grade math, gifted and talented. I was always book smart. But my family, my whole family is like I was book smart, but I had no common sense, like none. So I really do believe that to be true still to this day. I've learned with experience, like as you get older and you mature, you start to like figure stuff out. But I'm still right now, you can give me a book to read and I can read it and put it all together. I'm really good at that stuff. But figuring things out all by myself without any resources, not always. I mean, again, it's gotten better with age, but I can definitely understand the assessment now. My husband, on the other hand, um, hates school. He absolutely despised school. Didn't want to go to school. Even when he would get certified for his work and stuff like that, hated going to training. And it's not that he doesn't like learning, he just is not into classrooms. But I have to tell you, my husband is one of the smartest people I've ever met in my entire life. He is so good. Like, he can look at something and understand how it works. He can understand how to fix it. He can understand like the process. Like he is very eager. Like there's nothing out here that um like solar. Like for example, when we bought the house in Mexico, it's all solar. He's like, I don't know enough about solar, but guess what? He got on the internet, he got on YouTube, he researched, he like did all the stuff, and now he knows everything that he needs to know about solar and can put our whole solar system together. And like, look, if you just plug this in here, da, 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 da. Like he always tries to explain it to me, and I'm always like, I don't care. Like, I'm glad you know. That's why I married you, but I don't need the details. But that's like one of the things that is super hot about him is that there is nothing that he's like, if I don't know how to do it, I'm gonna figure it out. And he always figures it out. He always figures it out. Even if he has to like hire somebody. Like I was laughing at him. I was laughing at him. I think I shared it with you on one of our podcasts where we broke down at the Mexico border and had to like get there. So while the mechanics are replacing and fixing the truck, he's like sitting in the garage with them, sitting on top, watching them work. And I'm like, why are you being a weirdo and like watching them like so they don't break anything? He's like, no, I don't know how to do what they're doing. And I'm trying to learn so that next time if it happens, I know how to fix it on the side of the
Yeah,
road and I don't have to stress. And I'm like, oh, I would have never like
yeah,
thought to do that. But
yeah.
that's just how he is. He is very, very observant. And again, but we talk deep about politics and current events, and it's not that he lacks intelligence. He's so intelligent. He's so smart and
Yeah,
perceptive. And God,
yeah,
it's sexy. It is so
yeah,
sexy. Don't tell him I said that because I got to keep him humble. Don't I try not to
yeah,
say nice things to his face so he can always wonder if I love him or not.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I find it incredible. But I don't like pretentious people. If
yeah,
they're like, I know this and I know that and I do this, I'm like, you're gross. You're gross. I
yeah.
like humble intelligence. How about that?
Hmm.
Humble intelligence.
Well,
I find incredibly attractive.
there's that theory of multiple intelligences where it's not just necessarily you know um what you're intelligent at or what you're smart at, you know um different things, like you said, book smart, retention of information, you know, um, you know, smart with your hands, right? And
Mhm.
good and breaking things down. I mean, the world's, top surgeon and the world's top mechanic of fine automobiles probably share a lot of the same qualities, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so that's it just depends, in different fields and the different what you're really good at. My daughter has this artistic streak in her that I have no fine motor skills, and she's just amazing with some of the stuff that she does, and it's just even creative in her mind. I like to write stories, but I'm terrible with dialogue, and she
Mhm.
specializes in dialogue. That's all she does, and so her short stories are mostly like scenes from a play or scenes from a TV show, right? And so I want us to put together, and I said, here, I want to
Mhm.
write a book, and then you write all the dialogue inside of it. Just here's the story treatment, and fill it in. And we need to do that one day. But there's different ways of looking at intelligence, right? Just because somebody doesn't share your um your skill or your intelligence in a different area doesn't mean that there's something wrong with them, right? Just
Right.
sometimes we just need to discover, there's emotional intelligence, right? Some people maybe aren't necessarily that great and the technical administrative stuff, but they know how to connect with people in a way that other people can't, right? And so just recognizing people's skills, and there's, I'd like to say everybody has a skill, and a lot of people don't necessarily realize that those skills are important
Hmm.
or that they're actually recognized as skills. And so how do we help people to access what it is that they do that can contribute, right? And so
Hmm.
that's definitely important. A lot of people are locked into, jobs where, well, my mom was an accountant, so and my dad was an accountant, so I'm an accountant. And how you like your life? Oh, well, I always wanted to be an artist, but my dad said that there's no money in it, right? And so, we put those limits sometimes on people, and I think it's important to help people realize that, you know, what is it that maybe you would really, really specialize in and flourish in. And if it's not what you're not doing, if it's not what you've been doing, is there a chance to change it? All right. Is there an opportunity? How could you make that your opportunity? So
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Well,
You got to do what you got to do and thrive where you thrive. It's
yeah,
different for everybody.
yeah.
Definitely different for
Thriving.
everybody.
Yeah. And thriving is, it's hard. Just even going back to our topic for today. I mean, how many people really feel well, right, in their job or what they do or who they do it with, right? What are the things that that people are doing to really help them to feel like they're in the right place, they're feeling good about themselves, and they're reducing stress, and that's an important topic, especially since it's kind of what we're talking about, the idea of being stressed and dealing with stress and how important it is to manage our stress,
Hmm.
and how many people are really good at minimizing the effects of stress, because stress is going to happen whether you like it or not. It's going to be there, right? And so what's your thoughts on stress, and what do you do?
I melt down. Oh no.
Yeah.
So, um, stress, the silent killer, the not so silent killer. I think stress is very relative to the person. Um, there are some people that I think can manage it well. Like stress is inevitable. Let's just start there. No matter what kind of life you have, whether you're retired, whether you're, living, working your dream job, like whatever it is, like stress is inevitable, but it's how you manage stress. I think that's important. There are some people who have very low thresholds for stress, like one small inconvenience in their whole life is discombobulated. Then there's other people who are really well equipped to manage high levels of stress and not, it doesn't impact them in a negative way. And so, but I think everybody has their breaking point. And like for me, I'm giggling because there's like this running joke in my household that every I have a spring meltdown. Like every March or April is when I hit the peak of my capacity to process stress, and I have a meltdown almost every year. Um, Part of this is because like um, January to June is like the busy peak season where we're on the road like all the time, and there's very like I never plan for respite, and I tried to do that this year, but my meltdown came before my week. So, but it's like you have to kind of plan for like what you can anticipate, and I didn't plan it well enough this year, but um, I feel it in my body before anywhere else. And it's funny because, like, my husband, remember, I tell you, he's very perceptive. Like, he starts to notice when stress is taking its toll on me because I start to breathe different. And he'll be like, "Why are you breathing like that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Why am I breathing? I'm just breathing." He's like, "No, you're breathing weird." And I'm like, "I'm literally just breathing." He's like, "No, you're breathing weird." And I don't notice it, right? So I had to ask him one day, like, what do you mean I'm breathing weird? Like, how do you know I'm breathing weird? He's like, well, think like an old car. Like if you turn your car on, you know what sounds your car makes. And when your car starts to make different sounds, you know something's not right. That's you. You're my old car and you're breathing weird. And I'm like, okay. But what it is that stress becomes overwhelming. I start to get anxious and I get what they call air hunger, where I am like trying to get air in my lungs. I'm breathing, but I don't feel like air is actually entering my lungs. And so I'm like, because my chest is real tight. So I'm going, like trying to take sharp breaths to like expand my lungs. And so
Yeah.
he notices when I start to breathe like that and he tells me you're stressed. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm always in denial. And it's so stupid because I know I know what's happening, but I'm always in denial. Like, no, I'm not stressed. I'm fine. I'm fine. And then I'm not. And so that's what happened this year is that it was like towards the end of March, there was a day that I was just so like again, so much energy and like my whole system was dysregulated and I was having a hard time even like forming sentences. Like my brain was moving so fast, my mouth could not keep up with like my thoughts and um I was like breathing really off. My heart was racing. Like I don't have health insurance, so I was literally like, Chat GPT, am I having a heart attack? I wasn't. And I would get like little spells of being lightheaded and I was really like freaking out a bit, but I
Mm.
was just at my breaking point. And so I had a long weekend, which was really fortunate. I went to the house in Mexico, which is like a very peaceful place for me and I got some self care. So there's a place that I like to go there that does ancestral medicine and massages. It's like a spa. And so I went and got my energy cleansed. I went and did like some sauna work. I got a good massage. Um, we did some balancing, some sound balancing, and some other stuff. And I did some meditation over the like I meditated every day and just really kind of practiced slowing down. And I didn't take my computer with me. I didn't take any kind of technology, so I could be completely disconnected for like 4 days and it worked right before the meltdown. It actually did work and I came back and I felt refreshed and I could make sentences again. I didn't die of a heart attack. So it was necessary, but it took some being really really intentional. And I think that's the part that I missed for years is I missed the warning signs. I
Mm.
didn't pay attention to the warning signs of the overwhelm kicking in, and I would melt down, and my meltdown would be like I would be physically, emotionally, spiritually exhausted, and then I would cry for like a solid 24 hours, just cry, 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 sleep, cry, and then I would wake up a few days later, like, okay, I'm good now. And it would just stress everybody around me out. My family is like, oh my God, what's wrong with her? Why is she crying? Why hasn't she stopped crying? Why is she still crying? People who love you are like, oh my gosh, she's suffering. What do we do? What do we do? And I thought, God, that's so cruel to them. Like they're suffering because I'm suffering and I could just avoid the suffering and get my life together. I don't know. So that's my meltdown. I'm really trying to pay attention to not melting down, but it does require a bit of you have to not be in denial that you're at your breaking point. That's I think where my I want to be so strong all the time. I have to acknowledge that I'm also a human being and I need break. So
Yeah. And I mean, you're not much younger than me, I'm older than you, I'll say that, but
yeah,
I mean, we're of that generation. I don't know about, how your parents were. Might, rub some dirt on it, suck it up. Life is hard, you know, not everything's going to go your way. Figure it out, right? Power through. You got to be twice as good, all that other stuff, and so a lot of us, we just ignore, the toll that stress takes on us, right? And it's something that's important to recognize. I mean, there's a stat, that National Institutes of Health came out with, that 75 to 90% of visits to our primary care doctors are stress related,
Hmm.
right? So our regular doctors, the ones we go to at Kaiser or to Sutter or wherever else we go, right? You know, um, if you migraines, insomnia, can't sleep, right? Um, indigestion, ulcers, right? Back pain, right? Our body will produce, cortisol and adrenaline to help us get up off the couch and power through those things and figure those things out. But if we don't manage those stressors, if they're not short term, if they're long term and chronic, we'll have too much adrenaline, too much cortisol in our system, especially the cortisol in it, and it can shorten our lives.
Yeah.
There's a video I show in in my wellness class that is a cartoon from TED Talk people. I always preface it's the scariest cartoon you've ever seen, right? And it just talks about how stress affects you on a cellular level. And it talks to there's these little things called telomeres, right? Which are the end caps when we produce our cells, when we reproduce our cells, the telomeres kind of cap it, right? And allow us to grow more. And when when we have too much cortisol in our system, it kills the telomeres. So our cells cannot regenerate. And so when they die, we don't have the cell to replicate, to replace it. And so, I mean, I work better under pressure. And I'm one of those people, if I had a Friday, paper due, I was working on it Thursday, right? And, powering through until 3 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Hey, I work better under pressure. That's when I focus. And people who love stress, and if you're deadline driven like me and, like to figure things out, we get stuff done and we get stuff done just as well as anybody else. But at the same time, you know, it don't add any extra stress to us.
Right.
So that's that's something to think about, right? I mean, it affects us. And also, if you have like lupus or diabetes or arthritis, right? Too much cortisol in your system, it will affect your numbers. Your lupus, it will flare. Your arthritis will flare up. Eczema, psoriasis, right? You get those stress blooms of rashes that come up, right? Diabetes, your blood sugar goes up when you're under a lot of stress. And so a lot of this stuff that we don't necessarily even recognize until it's too late, how much of it has to do with stress, right? And like you said, a lot of people just power through things and just figure, oh, I'll get through it. It's a rough time. Cool. But are there things that we can manage in the meantime to help us?
Yeah.
I was just listening to a podcast this morning. Do you know who Jay Shetty is?
Nope.
You should listen to him, Tiff. You would love him. He's a guy out of the UK, and he's a motivational speaker and a researcher and self-help guru type of thing. And he was
Hmm.
talking about how even just having clutter, just having clutter around you increases your stress level. Even if you're used to it and it's probably and it might be how you live. If you walk into a cluttered house, the first thing in your mind is, I've got to, I need to clean this one day, or it's just not as relaxing or as comforting. Where is it that I can
Right.
just lay out? Where is my creative sense? I'd like to be able to do this in that room, but I've got too much stuff in there. Oh, I'll clean out my garage. Oh, I just don't have time to do it. And the next thing you know, you've got all these things piling up where your home space is not your safe space, is not your comfort space. And so it creates a level of stress that does not have to be there. And you get those chemicals pumping. And so, chronic stress is something that, as much as the world, the environment creates it, we create it on ourselves as well. Right.
Oh, for
And
sure.
and so a lot of people, when they think of de-stress, they think of wellness, right? And so, but what is wellness? I've heard different people. I taught wellness classes, 4 times this week, right? And just what is wellness? And well, just when you're not sick, or when you feel well mentally, right? And or feel well physically. Okay, yeah, but it's really beyond that, right? Zimmer
Hmm.
says wellness is a state beyond absence of illness, but rather it aims to optimize well-being. So optimizing well-being. How many people have thought about how much do I want to optimize my well-being rather than I want to minimize my stress, right? So those are two different things. I want to lower my stress, but once we get there, have we thought about what do we want to do with that less stress? Is that optimizing our well-being? Is it something, how are
Hmm.
we, if we're feeling good about something, how do we lean into that and pursue that to release those positive chemicals, right? Those endorphins and the dopamine and, and all of those things, in our system that really helps us to, feel better about ourselves and better about what we do, right? And there's different areas of where we can focus. I want to share something, Tiff, real quick, if you don't
Sure.
mind, right? And just let me know if you can see it, because my
Yep.
all right,
Gotcha.
cool. Well, so this is something where, just different domains of wellness that have been identified, right? And you see, it's there's 8 different areas that are there, right? So you see where financial wellness, how well are you, how good is your money? Is your money right? Or, are you being able to pay your bills? Is your credit where you want it to be? Right? Are you in a
Hmm.
good space that way? Or is your money a little funny? Right? And, you might be saving up for that trip or that spa day, and then your water heater goes out like mine did 2 years ago. Or
Hmm.
your plumbing goes out, your entire plumbing system goes out on Christmas morning like mine did last year, right? So,
Wow.
just yeah, just thinking about, are we in the right place to be able to, you know, really live, the way that we want to live financially and not develop stress, right? But when all of these are in the right place, we're humming along. If our money's good, our job is good, we're feeling like we're hitting all those spaces, we're making a difference, we have supportive team, right? We're really helping people, right? Or whatever it is that we want to get out of our job. We're developing, we're growing, we're progressing in our career. If we're in that right place, then we're feeling good. Emotional, the esteem we hold ourselves in, if
Hmm.
we're feeling good about who we are. Physically, we're eating right or monitoring our baddies and staying away from the baddies and keeping our levels in a good place and being able to walk around without pain or whatever else it is, right? And socially, just recognizing, if we have um the right people in place. Do we need 20 people? Do we have those 20 people? Do we need 1 or 2 people? And if
Right.
so, do we have those people? Do we have access to those people in the way that we need, right? Environmental, how's your space working for you? Your workspace, your home space, right? Your car, right? Maybe your home space has been your workspace for a while. How's that figured out, right? If everything's doing well spiritually, if you're, getting your needs met, on a spiritual level, religiously, or if you have a faith, or even if you don't, are you able to give back? Are you at that top of the pyramid that Maslow talks about, the
Hmm.
self-actualization? Am I in the world? Right? And how do I fit in? And then, the intellectual, are we learning? Are we growing? Do we feel like we're in a learning environment? Can we continue to grow and develop? Are we encouraged to learn and to grow and develop? Right. And so when all 8 of those things are moving along, we are a well-oiled machine. We are humming along, doing great things, right? But when 1 or 2 of those things go wrong, that's when the stress chemicals come out, right? And just thinking about, I mean, I can, like I said, water heater goes out, or, the nature of the job changes, during the pandemic, rather than teaching in person, now we're teaching virtually. I didn't have a Zoom account before the pandemic, right?
Hmm.
What do I know what I'm doing? You're right. Am I going to be able to make this work? Right. You know, so it's really important to recognize, it's not just necessarily always about, who or how we're feeling. Just like I said, just I'm not sick, or I just got over a cold. I'm feeling well. Well, how well do you feel? There's different levels of wellness, and there's different areas where it's important to focus on. But how many people just power through those things? Oh,
Right.
well, if you live paycheck to paycheck, I mean, that's a stressful thing, a situation. Long-term poverty is considered a traumatic event,
Hmm.
right? And some people have PTSD over being dead broke and being, not having their own place to live and sleeping on couches, right? So it really is something that can affect us long term if we're not careful.
Yeah.
This concludes part 1 of our episode. Stay tuned for part 2, coming Tuesday to all major podcast platforms.